U.S. to cut air and naval assets deployed for NATO operations in Europe. The United States plans to cut air and naval assets designated to NATO operations in Europe in another hit to confidence concerning Washington's commitment to the military alliance. European officials on Friday backed up a report in the New York Times that the administration of President Donald Trump is set to sharply reduce the deployment of NATO-assigned fighter jets and maritime reconnaissance aircraft and relocate a submarine, aircraft carrier, and several warships. The plan comes as part of a broader U.S. strategy to draw down its military presence in Europe as it focuses resources on the Middle East, Asia, and the Americas. Major movements of troops along NATO's eastern flank have been announced, introducing instability to cross-Atlantic security at a time when Europe is increasingly focused on potential Russian military threats. NATO officials said on Friday that the alliance is aware of some planned U.S. reductions and sought to frame them positively, insisting the pullback will be good for long-term sustainability. This change strengthens NATO defense plans by reducing overdependence on one ally and is a reflection of a broader shift happening within the alliance, NATO spokesperson Alison Hart told the Anadolu news agency. This is about putting NATO on a more sustainable footing for the decades to come, Hart added. Alternative defense plans. According to the MIT, the U.S. intends to decrease the number of F-16 and F-15E fighter jets allocated to NATO from about 150 to 100, while dropping maritime surveillance aircraft from 26 to 15. 8 aerial refueling aircraft are also expected to be withdrawn completely. Advertisement. The report said one of 2 bomber task force groups previously assigned to European defense would be redeployed to another region, while a missile-capable submarine and an aircraft carrier would also be stationed elsewhere. The expected cuts, which would affect NATO reconnaissance and long-range strike capacity, and further U.S. disengagement have forced NATO to weigh alternative plans for Europe's defense in the event of a Russian attack. However, Washington's erratic plans are making it more complicated for the alliance's European member states to identify priorities. We need to focus on things that we can acquire quickly, that we can field quickly, and that we can scale rapidly and sustain over time, and that goes for long-range fires as well as drones, said NATO Supreme Allied Commander, U.S. General Alex Grynkewicz at an airshow in Berlin on Thursday. Those sorts of things can help us mitigate the near-term risk should we find ourselves needing to deter and defend, he said. Trump has repeatedly lashed out at NATO, including for what he deems insufficient support for the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, and described the alliance as a paper tiger. The U.S. president has also accused European governments of underinvesting in their militaries and relying too heavily on U.S. protection, while urging both Europe and Asian allies to boost defense spending to 3.5% of GDP. Trump is expected to attend a NATO summit in Turkey on July 7-8. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, described the summit as probably the most important meeting in NATO history because there's some things that need to be cleared up and fixed.